this is Jean from Happy Indulgence and welcome to my channel. Today I will be talking about my June wrap-up. Yes, hopefully it's going to be on time because I am filming on the 30th of June and that is a big deal, especially for a new mum like myself. June, oh my gosh, it was such a busy month that flew by. I kept myself busy with a lot of appointments. Basically, Amelia's 5 months. She's started solids now. She is just the best baby ever. I have been taking her out and about just to keep herself entertained and to keep me sane pretty much. So we've been doing stuff like swimming lessons, baby sensory classes, a lot of mum catch-ups, and it's just really important to keep the mind active and just keep myself busy because I've noticed that staying at home doing not much just brings about my anxiety, especially when I can't get things done the way that I want to at home, and you pretty much have to just sacrifice what you want to do sometimes and just focus on the baby. So we've been having a really great time lately, especially with shopping and taking her out and about, and she's starting to do really great things like sit up by herself. Oh my gosh, it's just so cute. Anyway, I know July is going to be a super busy month. I am soon heading off to the Whitsunday Voices, which is a literature festival up the coast of Queensland, and I will be actually presenting 6 sessions about book blogging and my book blogging journey. So I'll make sure to link you guys below if you are interested in checking it out. It is pretty much targeted at students in the area. So one of my sessions I will be talking to over 300 students about book blogging. I cannot believe that I get these amazing opportunities after book blogging for such a long time, and it is just my dream basically. It's like my dream come true to be working on book blogging things such as this. So I will be jet setting with Amelia and my partner, and together we're going to head out to Mackay for the first time, and it will be our first trip out as a family. And although I'll be working for most of the time, it will just be interesting seeing how Amelia goes on our first flight away, and I think we'll have a great time just together as a family. So that will be happening around mid-month. June was a really great reading month for me. I got to read some amazing 5-star books. I did have one horrible book which is probably going to end up as my least favorite of the year, but other than that I didn't read as much as usual, mainly because I've been busy, as you guys know, and I think I will be busier as it goes on, especially as Amelia becomes more awake. But anyway, I am just happy that I do get to read sometimes because it is really relaxing. It is my favorite hobby, and yeah. Before I forget, in July we will also celebrate our 7-year blogging anniversary, and I'm super excited about that. So we have planned with Jenna and Isla, who are my co-bloggers, to do our first live show on YouTube. So that will be happening. I'll make sure to leave all the details down below. We'll pretty much be chatting with each other. Basically, Jenna's in Sydney, Isla is in the States as well, so we don't get to do this often, but it is something that we wanted to do, to catch up with each other and also to interact with our followers. So it would be awesome if you guys joined us, or if not, you can catch up on the live show on my channel a bit later. Yes, a big thank you to everyone who also left a question on my 2000 subscriber Q&A. I haven't had the chance to answer that Q&A yet because I was a bit overwhelmed by the amount of responses on there, and thank you very much for entering my competition as well. So I'll make sure to answer that Q&A at some time. Alright, let's just get started on my favorite books that I read during the month down to my least favorite. So the first one is a short one, and that is The Test by Sylvain Neuvel. Oh my gosh, guys, this book was so brilliant. I picked it up on a whim because I really enjoyed Sylvain Neuvel's first series, which is The Themis Files, which was a lot like Illuminae, but basically an adult version with robots on Earth. So, if that didn't capture your attention, that's pretty much it. Giant robots on Earth. The Test definitely will, especially if you like mind-fucking reads. Holy shit. I could not put this book down. It's basically a really short book of about 100 pages. It's a novella, and it's pretty much a Black Mirror episode in the form of a book. So the test is basically about a guy sitting down for his citizenship test. He's basically nailing this test so far, but suddenly terrorists come in and he gets held up. He needs to protect his wife and his kid, and he is really scared and stressed about what will happen to this terrorist, especially as this terrorist starts involving him in his plot of deciding who will die. So the terrorist picks out 2 people from the crowd, and this guy has to decide which of these people has to die. And then, without revealing too much more of the plot, you discover that it's a simulation as part of Britain's new citizenship test, and you have to figure out just whether this guy is an ideal citizen to enter Britain, pretty much. But oh my gosh, this book was just filled with twists and turns. I could not put it down. It was just like a really scary concept that is just so real as well, and it really tugs at the heartstrings, especially being a new mom and especially knowing what you would sacrifice for your family. And oh my gosh, just like a Black Mirror episode, there's multiple layers of deceit and deception, and by the end of it, it's like something that explores different layers of morality, and then it kind of leaves you with an impression where you're like, was that a good ending or was that a bad ending? But it's about like the consequences of technology and of morality, pretty much. This book was just so scary. I had trouble sleeping, and oh my gosh, I just could not stop thinking about it all throughout the night, and that's already hard enough being a new mum, but oh my gosh, I loved it. So I gave the test 5 stars, and even better, Sylvain Neuvel followed me on Twitter and thanked me for raving about it, and that's the sign of an author who cares about his readers. Okay, the next 5-star read probably doesn't come as a surprise to you guys, and that is Red, White and Royal Blue by Casey McQuiston. Oh my gosh, this book was so good, and everyone's raving about it at the moment, and I know why. So I read this book for Pride Month because it basically features a gay relationship between the 2 protagonists, who happened to be Prince Henry of Wales and the first son, who was Alex. And it's set in, I think, 2020, where the President of the United States is the first female president, who also happens to be Alex's mother, and Alex is actually biracial, so he's American and Mexican. There is so much flirtatious banter in this, especially as Henry and Alex just take every opportunity they can to get together while trying to avoid the paparazzi and the scrutiny of their own families. There's just so much scandal, so much sexy banter, so much flirtatious email exchanges, and oh my gosh, I was just so here for absolutely everything that happened in the book. And there's, you know, lots of fun Secret Service agents, there's a really diverse cast of characters as well. I just ended up loving this book so much, and Alex is also coming to terms with his bisexuality, which was really interesting because he hasn't quite come out to his family and his friends yet, and knowing like what the consequences of the next election would be, that had a bit of a play as well. And especially knowing the English monarchy as well, how traditional they tend to be. It just all came into play with his relationship with Henry, and oh my gosh, it's like an enemies to lovers romance as well, and I was so here for it. So that is Red, White and Royal Blue, one of my favourite books that I've read all year. It is a really diverse LGBT romance book, but holy shit, I love it, and Casey McQuiston is definitely one of my new favourite authors. So obviously I gave this book 5 stars. The next book that I read is Fables, the Deluxe Edition Book 1. So this actually encompasses 2 volumes. So you've got Fables Volume 1, The Legends in Exile, and Fables, I think it's Volume 2, and that is Animal Farm. The reason why this is 4 stars is because I gave both of the volumes 2 different ratings. So first, let's talk about Legends in Exile. I picked this up because I love the Telltale series, The Wolf Among Us, and it's basically about Bigby Wolf, who was taken away from the fairy tale land, and they have now moved away and they're trying to survive in New York, basically. And it's a really dark and gritty retelling of fairy tale characters and how they've come to be after the fairy tales. So Bigby Wolf is now a private investigator who works for Snow White, who is like the mayor of Fabletown. And these fables, you know, have their own security, and basically what happens in Legends in Exile is that Bigby Wolf is investigating a murder or like disappearance of Rose Red, I think, because he stumbled upon a super violent crime scene. And what he does is he interrogates different characters from Fabletown town to find out what happened to them pretty much. So it's really interesting just seeing how these fairy tale characters are now surviving and living in like New York basically. It's really gritty and dark, and it's also a lot of fun imagining them as these characters. And Snow White is now like the most hardened badass mare, and it's really feminist as well seeing her that way, especially since a lot of comic book females seem to be highly sexualized, but she just won't take no for an answer. And Big B as well, he's like a really hardened type of PI character. I really enjoyed seeing where these fairy tale characters had ended up, and I thought it was really creative and really fun, just a fun little mystery, and I ended up giving that one 4 stars. The next story in this one was Animal Farm, and it was set out on the animal farm basically where fairy tale characters have turned into animals and they refuse to move to Fabletown because they want to repossess it. It's basically about Snow White going out there, and she basically finds out what's happening with these animals, and she's accompanied by one of her sisters. There's a bit of sisterly conflict here. I didn't like Animal Farm as much. I think it's a bit of a twist on the George Orwell Animal Farm book, and it's just about like these animals with machine guns and they're trying to take over the world or take over Fabletown again and gain control. So anyway, I'm not too big of a fan of that book, so yeah, I ended up giving Animal Farm 3 stars. So together I've got 4 stars and 3 stars, so this one's basically a 4-star overall. Next book that I read was an unexpected old read for me, and that is Daughters of the Storm by Kim Wilkins. So Daughters of the Storm was actually released back in 2014 when you didn't have a lot of feminist fantasy reads, and I ended up really enjoying it because it's actually like a very traditional type of fantasy book. It's about a king who has gone into a coma, and then his succeeding daughter is Bluebell, who is like a really badass warrior queen basically, and she will just like cut you if she doesn't like something, and she's a really strong warrior commander. She basically reads as a bit of a male character, so it was really interesting to see such a masculine character take authority, and I really love that about this series. This is about Bluebell and her 4 sisters and what happens when they don't know what will happen to the king, especially if he ends up dying, and they need to succeed as well in the royal throne. So each of these 4 sisters were also different as one another as you could be. So you've got Rose, who has a child and she has married off to a king, but she's actually cheating on him with the king's nephew. So that's really interesting. Then you've got Willow, who has given herself to a religion, and it's really interesting seeing just what comes of that. You've got Ash, who has a bit of a magic that she can summon, which is really interesting. Then you've got Ivy, who is a bit promiscuous, and she's probably the youngest of them all. And each of these sisters have such a tenuous relationship with one another and with their father, and the way that they act out just really comes out, and it just shows you the best and the worst of each of these characters as they're just thrust into uncertainty. So I thought it was a really interesting book, especially seeing how different each of these 5 sisters were. I thought it was really feminist. I really liked the Norse-inspired mythology in this one, but I did find a lot of the other sisters later on were kind of annoying and one-dimensional and kind of ruined things for Bluebell, which is the point pretty much. I ended up giving this one 3.5 stars, and I will be reading the next book, which I'm super excited about. The next book I picked up is Shadow of the Fox by Julie Kagawa. I actually DNF'd this earlier this year, but I did pick this up again, and I'm really glad I gave this a second chance, because once I had readjusted my expectations about this book, I ended up really enjoying it. It reads a lot like an anime or a manga, so if you do like Japanese inspired stories, definitely pick this up. It was just filled with a lot of fun. So it's basically about a character called Yumeko, and she's a really mischievous half fox, half human. So she escapes a temple with an ancient scroll, and it's the first time she's been out in the world following her master of a temple for such a long time. And she accompanies a guy called Kage Tatsumi of the Shadow Clan, and he has been trained to become a shinobi, which is like a dark samurai sort of character, and together they just get into lots of antics. They bump into like so many different Japanese inspired creatures, and there's just a lot of magic and a lot of fun. The only reason why I didn't rate this book over 3 stars is because I thought it didn't add too much to the genre. But yeah, especially if you like Japanese inspired fantasy and folklore, I think you'll enjoy this book, and I gave it 3 stars. Next book I read is probably my most disappointing book of 2019, and that is Wicked Saints by Emily A. Duncan. Oh my gosh, guys, I was so disappointed with this book because I was expecting like a really awesome, like dark, gory tale with a villain in it, and you know, it's marketed as like Let Them Fear Her, and that kind of conjures like something like a Grisha Nevernight, which I would have absolutely loved. But this book ended up being so disappointing. The execution was just not there. It ended up being like a really confusing read where you're not too sure what happened. Like the concept of it was a lot better than it happened, and it felt like a lot of the world was in the author's head, and it was kind of vague, and like I can't really tell you what exactly happened in this book other than it's about a character called Nadia who's from a monastery that goes down. She can hear gods in her head. She bumps into a character called Malachi. He's an enemy, but he ends up being like a really sexy villain type character. And yeah, like if that isn't predictable enough, I don't know what else I can tell you. But I do have a full review coming up soon about my thoughts on this book, and I found it really disappointing. So stay tuned for my book rant coming up. I ended up giving this one 1.5 stars. So these are the books that I read during this month of June, and I hope you guys enjoyed my thoughts on them. If you did, please give me a thumbs up, leave a comment down below on what you thought about any of these books, if you've read them, if you're keen on reading them, if you agreed or disagreed, and subscribe to my channel if you'd like to see more. Thanks guys, I'll see you guys next time, bye.